In this video, I want to talk about dual use rights. So dual use rights is what Microsoft calls equivalent licensing. So basically it means that if you have certain cloud subscriptions that you're buying, you're still able to access on-premise server environments, but you just need to know which one you're able to access. So as a starting point, the picture on the left shows a lot of information. This is taken from the Microsoft product terms. So it used to be in Appendix A, it's still in the appendix. So if you go to the product terms website, there's a little drop down on the left. CAL equivalent licensing is included here. So every CAL that you have been using or are used to using has an equivalent online service. We've talked about this in earlier videos where you had, for instance, Windows Server client access license availability in the EMS E3 license. So if you buy EMS E3, you would have the right to access on-premise Windows servers. So when you license yourself with online services, you have the right to use these licenses to access your own on-premise servers, even servers that are hosted for you through your outsourcers, etc. So for instance, you purchase Microsoft 365 E3, you now have the right to access all relevant application servers for Exchange, SharePoint, and Skype for Business. Well, because Office 365 E3 gives you this use right. You also have the right to access any and all Windows servers because Enterprise Mobility and Security E3 gives you this use right. There's more than just M365 that grant this offering because Dynamics 365, for instance, has this as well. So if you want to learn more about that, be sure to check out our Dynamics 365 content that is on our YouTube page as well. There's an extra benefit when you license Microsoft 365 E3 and E5, namely that if you license all your users from Microsoft 365 E3 or E5, you may also install any number of copies of the following service software on any server dedicated customers use, which is Exchange Server, SharePoint Server, and Skype for Business Server. And access to the above server software is exclusive to those users. What this means is that if you buy E3 or E5 for everyone, you can still access all your Exchange and SharePoint servers on your own premises, but you also don't need to hold the licenses anymore for those servers. So the licensing of those servers becomes free when you buy E3 or E5 for all your users. In certain scenarios, Microsoft might even offer this for your F3 users as well, but that would require a concession. So if you have a lot of F3 users, then it might make sense to look at including this for you as well. So take that into account for your next negotiation because it's generally not available for F3 or F1. But it might be if you are persuasive enough towards Microsoft. So for Office, you also have a certain dual use right. It used to be that only Office Pro Plus licenses granted through Microsoft 365 from SA licenses were eligible to be used through a local old school installation as well. But Microsoft has changed that with the removal of the from SA terms from the product terms. They have basically opened this up to most Microsoft 365 user subscription licenses. So basically what this means is that for each licensed user who used a device license with software assurance for the Windows desktop operating system, Core Enterprise CAL Suite, and Office Professional Plus before being assigned a Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 user subscription license, you can install one local copy of Office Professional Plus for the sole use of the licensed user, or one local copy of Office Professional Plus for new user subscription licenses added to the same volume license agreement for the use of the licensed user for the duration of their subscription. So it's a sort of 1+1. So if you start with 4,000 E3 subscription licenses and you come off of software assurance for Office Pro Plus, you have the right to install Office Pro Plus for those 4,000 users. If your company grows, you have that right for the first initial 4,000 plus another additional 4,000, so 8,000 users that I have the ability to leverage this option. And lastly, for Windows per device and per user, basically this is still a piece of software. So even if you're userifying the Windows per device license, it's still a piece of software that you install. So what you see here on the screen is some excerpts from the Microsoft product terms, which speaks about the per user license assignment eligibility, excluding virtual desktop access, which basically reads the same. You are able to mix and match per user and per device licenses if this is still interesting to you. But basically, if you come from per device licensing, you move to Microsoft 365 E3 per user. You have userfied that license, but it's still a piece of software that you install. So it's still that you assign that license to a user, but you still need to install Windows OS on a local device for that primary user. So when we talk dual use rights, we talk about equivalent licensing from buying cloud services and how you can leverage those for the use or the benefit of your on-premise installations. So licensing cloud instead of on-premises can have a lot of benefits. It's licensing made simpler. So you have one license instead of multiple, depending on the solution needed. There's an incentive for Microsoft because they like to sell these cloud services instead of the old school software assurance licenses. So make sure you leverage that benefit, and you can move to the cloud at your own pace because you're still able to do everything that you were doing in the past while having the functional availability to innovate towards the future.